I'll call the meeting to order. And I'll ask for adoption of the minutes. We've got 3 sets of minutes. Could I get a mover for all 3 sets? Deputy Warden Townend and Councillor Davison. All in favor? That's carried. Any questions or comments on any of those minutes? None? Thanks very much. Can I get approval of the agenda, please? Councillor Fritsch, Councillor Hagedorn. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. First item is the Warden's report. Oh, sorry. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? None declared. Thanks, Tracy. Warden's report. Can I get a motion to receive the activity report? Councillor Richardson and Councillor Hagedorn. I will just mention that it's all in order, except on February 6th, I did attend the Palace Committee meeting, but because I had an OHT meeting right after that, I did not actually go on the tour as noted in there. Did I ask for all in favor of that one? Thank you. All in favor. Delegations and presentations. We have a delegation from Dr. Piotr Oglaza, Deputy Warden, and Nathan Townend, our Deputy Reeve, Wes Garrett, Chair of KFLNA Public Health, and they're going to be telling us about next steps with the voluntary mergers to strengthen public health. Gentlemen, who's ever going to be the initial spokesperson, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone, and Mr. Warden. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight and provide you with the update. First of all, I'd like to recognize Councillor Nathan Townend, who represents LNA County on KFLNA Public Health. He's doing a great job. We're very lucky to have him. And he's also a member of the Tri-Board Merger Committee. And he's providing a lot of support for us that way. So really appreciate the work of Nathan. I'm very proud to be part of KFLNA Public Health. KFLNA Public Health is a leader in the province of all the 34 health units. And it's due to this dedicated staff that we have, the strong leadership, and the innovative practices, and the level of service that we provide to our communities. And that makes it all the difference in the world. And I also need to thank Council for their strong support for public health over all the years, because that is what enables us to do our job well, and it does make a difference in all of our communities. So thank you for your support. Right now, we're going to talk about the Tri-Board merger, and to start things off, I'll turn it over to Dr. Oglaza, our Medical Officer of Health.
Thank you very much. The purpose of our presentation today is to provide an overview of where these voluntary mergers fit within the overall framework and overall strategy of the province to strengthen public health. We will provide an update on local work on voluntary mergers, as well as outline the next steps. The provincial public health strategy, which was called the Strengthening of Public Health, was first announced in August of 2023. And at that time, the province presented a 3-pronged strategy to optimize capacity, stability, and sustainability in public health. This was following the response to the pandemic, but also following maybe 20 years of reports since the SARS crisis in 2003. This 3-pronged strategy is based on as I mentioned, the voluntary mergers, that concept of public health units coming together. Second one is the review of Ontario Public Health Standards, which is the guiding document that outlines the scope of our work in local public health. And the third pillar, the third element of this strategy is for the province to do a review of the funding model and to ensure that there is a stable and sustainable funding for local public health.
Thank you. This isn't the first time we've talked voluntary mergers. The government has been talking about trying to modify things since probably around the year 2000. And the pre-pandemic plan to consolidate public health units from 35 to 10 was aired out there, and John was on public health at that time, so he's very familiar with this. And at that point in time, in doing so, they said, well, we could be part with Hastings Prince Edward, ourselves, Lanark, Leasing, Grenville, Eastern Ontario, and Renfrew, and Ottawa. That was going to be one health unit. And of course, thank you to all municipal governments and AMO and Roma and Alpha for pushing back, saying that was just totally inappropriate and would not work. So thank you to the municipalities who recognize the value of local public health. Post-pandemic, there's better, improved provincial understanding of what public health does. And that gives us an opportunity to look at a voluntary merger, because the provincial government is now offering incentives for public health units to merge on our own terms. And one of the things that we talked about there initially was the government thought, well, this is what we wanted to do in terms of looking at the three. Initially there was thought, well, you could include Renfrew and you could include Eastern Ontario. Since it's voluntary, we said, no, thank you very much, but this is the only thing that we're interested in doing, and because it was voluntary. So that's where we are at this point in time.
So in terms of the sort of policy perspectives from the government that's driving all of this, there's a couple of goals that the government's been very clear about. One is increasing capacity and critical mass of resources. This is fairly intuitive coming out of the pandemic, things like emergency preparedness and response. Improve stability over the long term. This involves looking to address things like critical skills gaps, staffing shortages, improving governance. Again, this assumes that some of these challenges which are faced across the public health sector can be mitigated by stronger merged entities that are drawing upon shared resources in a spirit of collaboration rather than competition and duplication. Provide more equitable public health outcomes. As we all know, in many ways, the pandemic laid bare the inequalities in our society, exposed the intersectional reality of how our health is socially and economically determined. So this particular goal reflects the government's commitment to take seriously the prevention mandate of public health in the broadest possible terms, and looks to a collaborative approach to address the varied social and economic determinants of health. Additionally, in the context of the proposed merged entity that we're talking about, equity obviously also has a geographical lens and focuses squarely on the disparity between service provision in rural and urban areas, something near and dear to our hearts here in the county. So again, the government is conscious of this disproportion and believes that merged entities hold the possibility of stemming the trend of ever-increasing centralization of services in more populated centers. Next is to maintain frontline jobs and services. This goal kind of speaks for itself. Reinvest savings in the local public health unit. So I'll talk about both of those two together a little bit to come right out of the gate and name the elephant in the room. Obviously, when people think merger, they think cutting. And they think cuts to frontline services, and that is a reasonable skepticism for the public to have. The government has been very unequivocal that this is not a cost-cutting exercise. Certainly the funding that's been dedicated to the voluntary merger process would suggest that the government has put their money literally where their mouth is. That's 3 years worth of funding. It's unprecedented. And again, the minister herself has repeated consistently that this is not a cost-cutting exercise and that all frontline services will be maintained. That's important for a number of reasons, not least of all for those boards that are proposing to merge. That is one of the only reasons we would consider entertaining the process, is if we could maintain those frontline services. So the boards are committed to that in taking the government at their word. Reinvest savings in local public health units. Again, if there are savings realized through restructuring in the new merged entity, the government will not recover those. Those will stay with the new merged entity and be able to be reinvested into more frontline services.
Thank you. So if you take a quick look at the map, and we're all familiar with most of the area, we actually consist of three regions: the urban area, the rural area, and then there's the remote section. And equity and delivering of services is really, really important. Currently, there is a strong history of collaboration within the three public health units, and for example, if you're in Charlotte Lake, some of the people go to Perth for public health services. We don't put up boundaries. We're there to provide service for the public. And the same thing if you're on an eastern border or western border of one of these municipalities, then that's what happens, and we've always done that. So we do share populations across key travel corridors. And if you know the map and you're very familiar with the territory, there's a 401 corridor, which serves most of the urban. And at the present time, because we're separate, we go north-south to deliver services to the north. Well, we've got Highway 7 corridor, and it might be better to go east-west once we merge to be able to better have services in the north. And it's probably a shorter distance and be able to manage that. So there's an opportunity for us to redefine how we deliver services. And as Nathan pointed out, equity and accessibility are the key factors for our rural areas. We are very similar in nature in terms of large urban centers, small communities, and remote areas as well. So what we've done, we've created a tri-board working group, and Nathan is part of that on our behalf, and we've engaged a consultant for a feasibility study. And just so you're aware, in terms of the group, it's a very strong group. We work very well together, and we have a number of meetings. And in terms of information, Robin Jones, who's the mayor of Westport, is also the chair of Roma, and she's on the Tri-Board Merger Committee. So we've got a lot of strength there in terms of knowing what we need to do and the importance of continuing to provide the level of service that we do. Thank you.
So in terms of the Tri-Board Committee that Wes just spoke of, we've obviously developed our own internal principles as a committee to guide us through this process. Some of those, of course, naturally flow from the government's own priorities, but I can just speak to a couple of them now. So sustainability is a core principle for us. The committee is very cognizant that the merged entity needs to be properly supported long into the future, and the relevant funding and other material supports need to be there. So I think it's important for our municipal partners to know that from the committee's point of view, we're obviously very excited about this opportunity, particularly the funding that comes with it, but rather than treating it as a short-term cash cow, the committee seeks to ensure that the ultimate ask that we take to the province with the business case is geared towards securing a future for the new entity that will last, and that, of course, will not unfairly increase the overall burden on municipalities, which again has been another commitment and promise that the government has made. Local. Again, coming back to an earlier point which addressed the differences between urban and rural communities, inevitably a geographical area as large as what is proposed, and you saw that got a sense of that from the map, we'll see a lot of shared challenges across the board, but a lot of differentiated ones too, specific to local contexts, and we're very aware of that. People first. It connects with the third principle of taking a people-first approach, and it dovetails, of course, with the government's own commitment to greater equity in the delivery and distribution of services. But it is broader than that also. It's about dedicating strategic space to focus on strengthening partnerships and collaborations within our communities that are already positively affecting the health outcomes for our citizens. So the new entity wants to embrace the best of each health unit currently in terms of what they have to offer and what they're doing with their own local partners and partnerships. So a people-centered approach is equity-focused and equity-based, but it's not homogenous. And the last principle, of course, is an evidence-based approach to our work. Again, this kind of speaks for itself. The effectiveness of the work that public health undertakes relies heavily on data-driven and well-researched answers. And again, we hope and anticipate that with the merger, there will be greater opportunities for things like data collection. We've discussed those kinds of opportunities to be able to really strengthen the evidence-based and research-based resources that public health can draw upon to meet the challenges that we'll face in the future.
Part of our work in exploring feasibility of the merger was to look at the funding for the new entity. Through that discovery, we uncovered that the municipal levies among the three organizations differ, and that there's an expectation that these levels will need to be harmonized over time. What the province is providing in this regard is that additional costs associated with harmonizing levies is going to be eligible for provincial funding over the 2 years following the merger. While the levy structure is still to be determined, it's important to notice that this will be the responsibility of the new merged Board of Health, and that Board of Health, that entity, will have final say. On that board, there's going to be, or the new entity is going to have 14 obligated municipalities, so much larger number than what we're dealing with right now. With KFLA, there's 3. There's going to be a new governance structure to ensure representation, and that structure is still being finalized. I also wanted to point out some of the unknowns in this timeline and the process. I already mentioned that in this year, the province is undertaking the review of Ontario Public Health Standards. So that's going to determine the scope of work we are doing as local public health. As well as next year, the province will be reviewing the local public health funding model, and that is also may have a potential impact on staffing municipal levies.
So in terms of the process of what happens next, obviously so far, the Tri-Board Committee has been meeting fairly frequently since the end of last year and working feverishly to try and meet the April 2nd deadline to get the business case in. So the government's going to take the summer basically to review that business case and come back with various negotiations and approvals. Once they do, and that may happen sooner in the summer, but the summer is sort of the period we're working with in terms of the timeline the government's put out. And so when that comes back, that basically starts the implementation process. And as of the 1st of January, the new entity will come into being. So again, short timelines, a lot of work to be done, a lot of work has been done, a lot of work to do going forward. But that's sort of where we're at. Much like today, it's obviously our intention to ensure that our municipal partners are kept abreast of everything that's happening. Obviously, things happen at a pretty rapid rate, so we're catching you up on quite a bit, but we expect to do that on an ongoing basis. And so, with that, if there are any questions, I told the chaps since I was at the home team, maybe I'd get lobbed some softballs.
No guarantees there.
We're used to hardball.
But no, please, any questions members have, we're happy to answer them.
Yes, and thank you for your presentation. Any questions or comments from council? Yes, Councillor Hagedorn.
Thank you, Warden. Through you, I just have a couple of questions. I guess the first one is, over the last few years, as we went through COVID and everything, this area did very well. And one of the things that we kept hearing over and over again as the reason it did so well was because of our health unit, our local health unit. And the warden sat on it at the time, and we got great feedback, but it was the knowledge of the local area, the idiosyncrasies of the area, and they were able to address it because it was a smaller unit. So I guess one of the questions I've got is, going forward, if the merger happens, how would that knowledge of the entire area be able to be maintained? And it was a side sort of question from that is, it's been mentioned that this is not a cutting process. This is a merger. So one of the questions that I've heard as people find out about this is, will some of the local locations be closing, are changing, or will the services stay the same as they are now in all of the areas that are being serviced, remotely or not?
Certainly, thank you very much for that question. This is a very important topic on top of mind of everyone among our staff, among the three organizations. It's our priority to make sure that under the umbrella of the merger, voluntary merger, we maintain that first of all the local connection that we have with our partners, and that we also maintain or enhance services. There is, it's important that when we first looked at the organizational size and what makes sense in terms of a merger, what doesn't make sense, Wes already mentioned the merger of 7 health units in the Eastern Ontario would not make sense, because that would be too large and we would lose that connection with an ability to deliver services and adjust them locally. With the combination of the 3, we are large enough to have that critical mass to ensure that sustainability and ability to respond to emergencies, redeploy staff if needed, but we also are able to continue maintaining that local decision-making, local service delivery. And if anything, I'm looking, our senior team, I just wanted to give you that maybe a bit of a glimpse into some of the planning discussions, even ahead of the formal decisions to merge, is that our teams are thinking and planning on how they're going to now use our pooled resources to jointly staff services, clinics in rural areas, so the service improves instead of improves rather than even stay the same. And we will be looking at other options and strategies for service delivery in rural areas. One of the examples is the outreach that we might do with mobile buses that bring clinical services to more remote areas. So as a result of this merger, that's our commitment, that you're likely going to see more services coming to rural areas.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Fritsch, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Warden. Yeah, I have a question is slightly tied to the previous one, but when you look at the province is looking at reviewing the Ontario Public Health Standards, so and possibly a shift of increasing, decreasing, or keeping somewhat the same the role of public health. What role do the public health units have in this case, your tri-board committee? What role do you have in a relationship with the province as they're looking for that? Are you part of this process?
Yes, we are part of this process as individual public health units at this point. So that's where the province has engaged with all 34 public health units. There are a number of working groups, and that's how this standards review is taking place. So yes, we have opportunity to provide our say and feedback. The question is how much of that feedback is going to influence the final shape of these new standards. And yes, that's a significant unknown here, because that's the key element of what could change the scope of our work and the scope of services we provide to the community. And that's completely independent of the merger. Whether a merger takes place or not, that review of the standards is happening and will impact all public health units in the province.
Yeah, so just to follow up to that, so that's expected this year that decision will be made in 2024 by the province, because as you're working on everything, and if the scope of your, I'm going to say the function of public health is changing in the middle of when you're trying to plan what you're doing, it's very awkward. So.
Yes, these two processes are happening in parallel. As a matter of fact, I think the voluntary merger discussions are more advanced at this point than even the standards discussions. But we will likely see. That's my understanding. We may likely see the launch of the new standards around the same time as the new merged entities are expected to start, which is 2025.
Any other questions or comments? Mine was along the lines of what Councillor Fritsch was inquiring about. It seems like a very ambitious timeline, and I know you've obviously been working very hard on this. is there enough flexibility built into what your proposal will be to adapt reasonably nimbly to whatever the province, in other words, are you looking at possible scenarios in terms, I'm sure there's back channel discussions, there always are in these sorts of things, about what the province might be proposing. So do you think you've got enough flexibility and adaptability built into your models that you can hit the ground running without stumbling too often?
No, I think we all want to say something.
And we may all have different perspectives. I'll speak from operational side of things. So there's discussions that are happening around the mergers from the corporate or from the governance side. That's one element. The way we design and plan programs, we have greater capacity when we do it together as three. So anything that changes, we will be able to adapt to that. And at this point, the work of the merger, that's parallel, but it would not, in our opinion, as from staff, from planning of operations, we'll be able to adapt to the new model.
The only thing I would add would be that in this current environment, provincial environment around public health, we will be in a better position as a merged entity to deal with whatever those changes will be, because we will have the larger capacity, and also because we're where the government wants public health units to go, and so we would be in a better position and more confident that we would be receiving the resources that we needed to do whatever an expanded scope might be. And certainly I can say from the Tri-Board Committee's perspective, that's one of the ways we've approached this process. We've, you can't be half in, half out. We've been all in this process, and we want it to succeed, and we would like it to be what the government wants it to be, and be an example of what the government is looking for in trying to improve public health. So again, all of those things are unknown for sure, and to Councillor Fritsch's point, it is a little awkward. However, I think as a merged entity, we will be better equipped to be able to handle whatever comes down the pipe.
Yeah, and just to follow up on Nathan's comments, the government stuck their neck out saying we want voluntary transfers. Normally it's top down, and they want this to succeed. They need this to succeed, and they're willing to support us, and that's not what you normally get. And just a reminder too that the Chief Medical Officer of Health used to be our Medical Officer of Health. So he's very familiar with our territory and knows what's happening, and so they do want this to succeed, and we're doing our best to get what we need out of it from the short term and the long term, and we will be able to adapt to those things, because it's important that it succeed, and it's nice to be part of it. And so thank you very much for your time tonight.
Anything further? That's a good point, Wes. Being out in front is probably advantageous. I just have one more question. It's more curiosity than anything. Are there other units in the province who are taking the initiative to voluntarily merge at this point?
You can name. I don't remember. Yeah, there's 4, so there isn't. I would speculate. This is my opinion. I would speculate that the government is probably a little disappointed that there aren't more. But at this point, I know that there's 4 for sure.
Interesting. Okay.
We're unique in that we're proposing to merge 3. We're the largest proposal, I guess,
Right.
of a merged.
Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and thanks very much for bringing us up to speed at this point. It's a very ambitious undertaking, and I hope it goes well. Can I get a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Fritsch, Councillor Hogg, all in favor? That's carried. Thanks very much. Matters for consideration, budget summary. We have a staff report. Is Mr. Day going to address this? Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden. Yes, before you tonight is the budget summary report. 2024 budget, as council is aware through our deliberations, is at $103.6 million. In tonight's agenda is the tax ratio and tax rates bylaws that support this budget. I just want to highlight again a couple of things that were achieved with this budget. I think one thing, a major goal towards council's strategic initiatives is to increase the capital levy by 0.5%. That increased additional $170,000 in capital funding to go to our reserves. That's going from 2% of the prior year's levy to 2.5%. Also in tonight's agenda is, in the budget was included in the staff enhancements for JMPC to get to our 4 hours of care, and council's commitment to the Lennox and Addington County General Hospital of $50,000 a year or $500,000 commitment for their MRI. So the overall increase, net increase is 2.9%, and that represents about a $55 increase on the average residential bill in the county. So that's happy to answer any other questions that council may have.
Any questions for Mr. Day? If not, can I get a motion to receive that report, please? Councillor Hagedorn, Councillor Richardson, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Council remuneration, this is a legislative requirement. I don't think there's any discussion necessary. It's just an information piece that we're obliged to provide. Unless anyone's got any comments, can I get a motion to receive that? Councillor Calver, Councillor Hogg, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Similarly, the public sector salary disclosure, can I get a motion to receive that? Councillor Davison, Councillor Hagedorn, any comments? Yes, Councillor Hagedorn.
Thank you. My only comment is I actually received some correspondence where there was math done that if this had been kept up to inflation, at what level it would actually be at instead of the 100,000 makes a huge difference. And I think it's, I'm just pointing that out because from what I got, instead of the number that we had on here, we would actually only have one. So it does make a huge difference, and the perception out in the community, it would change the perception a lot, I think, in the community if the province caught up to the reality. Thank you.
Yes, I had this conversation with my partner at lunchtime when she asked, what's on the agenda? And when we got to this one, she said, well, that's almost 30 years ago that started. What's the equivalent salary now? And it's true, but it's political poison to try to change that. You can appreciate that. So, did I get a mover and seconder, Tracy? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Vehicle purchase. Oh, did I miss one? Yes, community paramedicine. No, I'm way too far ahead of myself. Boy, yeah. Oh, I see. Everything's shifted here on my little tablet. So it's the LNA Paramedic Service Medivy Initial Review. This would be Mr. Adair. Are you prepared to address this, sir?
I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you, through the warden. This is I'm pleased to present our initial status report that was in partnership with Medivy Health Services and Lennox and Addington. This is a Medivy, the attachment to this report is a Medivy report. Myself, an individual, Darcy Clinton, who's the Director of Operational Performance, Don McClellan, Director of Mobile Integrated Health, as well as Mike Crowley has been on site, working with our paramedics and with our supervisors and our senior staff to assess our paramedic service and help create ideas and recommendations and areas that we want to look into to continue to moving forward. You know, we are pleased to say that we have exceptional staff. We have people that are working at their capacity. We have paramedics that are out there in the trenches every day doing an amazing job. And there are things that we can work on to continue to make this a great service and bring it forward and continue to elevate it. The process that we're going through is the initial assessment, which council will see in front of you and you've had to look at, is our first step, and that is the listening and doing some inquiry with our staff, as I've mentioned, and then we're planning to act on that. We will be hiring a chief in the next month or so, And then we're going to be working with them to continue to set some timeframes around this action plan, and then cycle all the way back around again. It's kind of like the plan, do, check, act cycle. And because this is going to be a living document and something that we can use as a checklist as we move forward as a paramedic service. So I'm pleased to take any questions at this time, and real excited to present this to you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on Mr. Adair's report? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Fritsch.
Through you, Mr. Warden, I'm more curious just what the scope of the Employee Relations Committee is in some layman's terms, or
Sure,
what do they do?
yeah. So our Employee Relations Committee is a committee that has been in effect historically here, and it's a union management committee where either management or union members have the opportunity, so frontline workers have an opportunity to bring forward issues, ideas, thoughts, and can have input into, say there's a policy change, or say there's workplace, say there's something that's in the collective agreement that might not be working well, or that it is working well, and we want to make changes to it to make it even better. So it's a place where we can have that dialogue and communication together in partnership, and then that helps inform us to make decisions moving forward. And that's what that committee is essentially for. It helps us to maintain positive working relationships. And we've had our first meeting since I've been here, and it was a very robust, excellent conversation and very collaborative, and we're looking forward towards many, many more.
Thank you. And thank you. Yeah, sounds interesting. It's just a follow-up to that. So does management also use that committee to, quote, float ideas and get input from the union as well?
Yeah, through the warden, absolutely. That is something that we can use to receive ideas through the union. And again, that might be something that we want to ask a question. They might be bringing something forward to us. In addition to that, and in response to some of the good work that Lennox and Addington is concurrently doing with respect to employee engagement, we will be striking a second committee, not to make it so committee heavy, but so that we have the capacity to really get feedback from the front line. And that's going to be a paramedic advisory committee. That committee reports into the chief. And so if we are looking at, say, a piece of equipment, or maybe we're looking at something that may have a positive impact on employee culture or mental wellness of paramedics, that we can also, there'll be a platform for us to have those types of discussions with our frontline staff. So as an example, we do have a third committee, which is our Quality Improvement and Education Committee, and we're working very closely right now with our frontline staff to develop a curriculum for this year that they'll be receiving. And some things came up in that in one of the meetings previously that is in one of our reports today. That was with there were grab bars that are above your head in the back of the ambulance, and they were in a position where we were at risk of bumping our heads. And so this was brought forward to us, and then within a couple of weeks, we worked with the manufacturer and the engineers to move those bars over successfully. So those are the types of things and the types of engagement that we will have with all of these committees.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Fritsch. Thanks, Mr. Adair. Anything else? In terms of the new chief position, what are the deadlines there for submission of applications and interview and hiring and so on?
Certainly through you, Warden. The deadline for submission of applications has passed, so we are currently in the interview phases. I am pleased to report that our first round of interviews will be concluded the first week of April, and certainly in the process we may be going into a second round of interviews. We will be working with the CEO as well to make sure that we select the right candidate. And then job offers will go out. So I don't have a specific time frame, because we, of course, would be negotiating with an individual who will be leaving an employer and then coming into us as an employer. And so we would expect, though, that the normal recruitment process would still take a few more weeks after we finish interviews. So I don't want to give like a specific deadline and be held totally accountable to that, but it would be, you know, like normally after you do a job offer and there's a negotiation period, that might take 1 or 2 weeks, and then you'd be looking at a period of likely 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks to have a chief in the seat.
So if all goes well, we can say spring sometime.
Correct.
Yeah, that's great. Anything further? In that case, can I get a motion to receive Mr. Adair's report? Councillor Fritsch, Councillor Richardson, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Community paramedicine, I guess, Mr. Adair. Oh, no, it's Paul, right? Yeah, sorry. And you have a report for us on community paramedicine. Go ahead.
Thank you, Warden. Good evening. It's my pleasure to be here to present the community paramedic staff report for the fiscal year 2023-24. I have a small presentation. I know you have the report in front of you, but we've received a request to present to some other lower tier municipalities a report on what community paramedics do and who we are. So we're going to give you that presentation tonight, and then we'll follow up with any questions you might have afterwards. All right. So what are community paramedics? We work collaboratively with other healthcare providers and community partners to drive healthcare in our communities. I hate to say this term, but I look at us as the Fire Prevention Bureau of EMS. So we are out there to help deliver and promote illness prevention, patient assessments, to keep families happy, healthy, and safe where they want to be, which is generally in their homes. We're enhancing the healthcare capacity through access, capacity, and flow. So those are the buzzwords from Ontario Health, that we want to increase capacity, access, and flow. So we're helping alleviate the strain on the healthcare system by creating safer places for people to get their care, which is generally in their home. So the quintuple aim of the Desire to Health comes with Ontario Health Teams. So we want to improve the person and caregiver experience. So that's improve your experience in your home or wherever you need to get your care, and as well as the caregiver, the person giving the care. So whether that's a spouse, a daughter, or another loved ones. Improve population health. So through our vaccination programs that we're outreaching, we're helping to improve population health. Advance health equity, and this is a big one for us, where, you know, when we first started the program, we looked at the county and said, oh, let's look to the north and look to the south and see where we need to improve our health equity. And further slides will get into where we've helped with that. Improve provider experience, and that's not us as the community paramedic provider experience. So this is, we're going to improve the experience of primary care providers. So we're helping family physicians treat their patients adequately for the ones that aren't able to get to their appointments or get to Life Labs or get somewhere where they need to get that care. We're bringing that to their home for them. And in some of the slides later, you'll see that for palliative care, we're helping in that way help the nurse practitioners and the physicians that provide the palliative care in home. We're there as their support as well, and as well with MAID services. So improve value. So community paramedics province-wide is a very large bill, probably about $160 million province-wide, and we are showing that we improve value. And how we're doing that is reducing hospital stays, reducing ER admissions, and reducing 911 calls by doing those services in home to stop the flow of people going into hospitals and long-term care facilities. So we also look beyond what normally paramedics would do, and that would be the social determinants of health. So, and how we do this is engaging partners such as Palace Social Services, and we're looking at income and social situations where we're bringing those workers with us. So a lot of cases that we've had where there's an isolated senior in the north, I'll just use as an example, where we would then bring along a social worker with us to get them connected with social services, and then we would connect them with food banks, and we would then deliver the food for them. So we would work with the food bank and make sure that they're getting what they need to where, so they can stay in their home safely. So we don't necessarily deliver this, but we bring the experts with us that we collaborate with to bring this to them. So the history of the program, we started in January 2020, and that was under the pilot project of the High Intensity Sports at Home program through Ontario Health. At that point, we had no physician oversight. We were just basic life support, things in home, small wound care, routine vaccinations, COVID vaccinations, and then we started a collaboration with the palliative care team. And that was a 1-year pilot project with a 1 FTE position. I was one of the initial people under that program. In 2021, we had the expansion into the long-term care CPLTC program. That increased the number of paramedics from the 2 TFTs to now we had 4 full-time paramedics. The program broadened because we were able to hire physicians at that time, so we brought in point-of-care devices. So simple things to avoid, again, going to the hospital were urinalysis. So it's something simple that we could take into somebody's home and diagnose a UTI for a senior and then get them antibiotics in their home without even having to go to their family doctor or go to the ER. So that was pretty successful. In-home blood analysis and remote patient monitoring. So remote patient monitoring is where we have a service with a provider where we bring all the equipment into their person's home. If we need to monitor blood pressure or diabetes symptoms or that in a home, in the morning they'll get up, they put the monitors on themselves. That gets remotely transmitted to us through the provider, and we can monitor them at home remotely down here in Napanee. And then we had the 2 physicians that we brought on board. Funding. So, our funding is channeled through 2 distinct entities. So it's the CPLTC funding, which is administered through the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, and the MOH expansion funding, which is through Ontario Health. The CPLTC funding comes directly to us in the county. The MOH expansion fund, because ambulance services don't have relationships with Ontario Health, goes through an intermediary, and that intermediary for us is the hospital. So additional training for paramedics. When we started, we looked at it and said, we need to be trained. We need to be proficient in what we're going to be going out there and doing to create that trust with the community. So our community paramedics complete a CP Foundations program and a practitioner program. We work with public health to do public health training to be able to do, back then it was COVID vaccinations, lots of swabbing, lots of health promotion that way. And their health and the public health protocols. Point-of-care testing is part of that with iStat blood devices in people's homes, urinalysis, and phlebotomy certificates. So they take training in phlebotomy, and they're not a certified phlebotomist, but they have a certificate in phlebotomy that they can go out and draw blood and deliver that to Life Labs. Palliative Approaches program, so that's through the Pallium LEAP program and through our local nurse practitioner for palliative care comes in and does a training with us to be able to help assist with that, and then some dementia care training. How we receive referrals into the community paramedic program, generally speaking, they're through other entities. In the beginning, it was only with home and community care and other family health teams. We've expanded that to receiving them from 911s, hospital discharge. Police services call us once in a while if they've done a wellness check and they think a senior needs help in their home. They'll refer to us. KFLNA Addictions and Mental Health will also, we refer back and forth. And public health refers to us, and then now we have public referrals. And as you can see the slide there, Eastern Ontario Community Paramedic Program, that is the website for the Eastern region. And if you log into that website, you simply put in your address, and it takes you directly to the paramedic service that provides services under that address. So there's no guessing, you just type it in, send in the referral, and we receive that electronically. Staffing. So we have 4 full-time CPLTC positions, 2 temporary full-time under the MOH expansion, myself as the full-time superintendent, and then we're looking at, in the future, getting 1 administrative position. Outreach. So we've started an outreach clinic on Amherst Island, and we did that with the Amherst Island Medical Group that's out there. We reached out to them to see if we could help, and then that's part of that health equity part of it. So we provide a monthly clinic on Amherst Island doing general medical assessments, assessing vital signs, blood draws, vaccinations, and we'll calibrate people's blood glucometers for them to make sure that they're getting accurate readings and that sort of thing. So far this year, we've reached 207 clients. That's not 200 individual people on the island, that we've had 207 people come into our clinics over the last 12 months. In a partnership with PELUS in the Transitional Housing Program, We've started a weekly clinic at one of the transitional housing complexes here in town, and we're working collaboratively with our community partners to reduce 911 usage and other social determinants that are around that clientele. So we're providing wellness checks, medical assessments, vital signs assessments, opioid education, naloxone kit distribution, as well as wound care in that premises. So what are our partners saying about us? So we have 9 quotes here. I reached out to partners and they gave them a lot to us, and I'm pretty proud to see these quotes. So Ida from the Amherst Island Community Medical Clinic. So this is another example of that health equity with the 89-year-old gentleman that generally would never go to Life Labs to get his blood drawn because it's a burden to him to get there. So with us running the clinics, it's just a few minutes down the road for them. We draw the blood, take it to Life Labs for them, and they can get their medication changes or anything else that's done right there, living in their own community. Wendy Shelley, again from the Amherst Island Clinic. We had quite a few, if you looked at the report, flu and COVID vaccines on the island. There was a really big acceptance of those on the with the Amherst Island group. If I'm going too fast, just let me know. These are some longer ones. So this is from MCIT, so the Mobile Crisis Intervention Team that's embedded with the Ontario Provincial Police. We actually reach out to MCIT a lot for seniors that are in crisis and bring them with us to the home. We do a lot of joint visits together, and some of these have been great. Others are, and it sounds horrible to say, but is that there might be an unwanted guest living in the senior's home. So we would bring the crisis team with us, we would bring our own housing department with us, and we would make sure that we're not creating another issue down the road, and we would make sure that that's an equitable, separation in a household, and that, everything goes forward from there. So these are from actual patient quotes that we've received. Ron was our initial and first palliative patient that the community paramedics were involved with. All right, so some of our future partnerships and expansions that we're looking at currently, we're partnering, there's another OHD program we're partnering with at Kingston Health Science Center for the Cardiology and Respirology Department, and that's to handle some CHF or heart failure patients in their home and COPD patients in their home. And there was a study done through this that said that if we can intervene in at least 63 of these across KFL&A region, the savings to the healthcare system would be in the north of $3 million per year just by having them in their homes. Integration of the Lenadco complex. So we're looking at integrating the community paramedics as their base of operations into the Lenadco complex so they can be closer to our partners such as Home and Community Care who are in the building. Life Labs is in the building, our family health teams are in the building, and it just would be a more collaborative one place for everyone to access. So at this time, I just ask through you, Warden, if there's any questions.
Yeah, any questions for Paul? Or comments? Yes, Deputy Warden Townend.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Warden, I just wanted to offer my thanks, actually. I obviously live on Amherst Island, and it's made a huge difference in the community. It's probably hard for me to grasp. And the fact that you got a compliment out of Ida Gavalis, that's all I need to know.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Frisch.
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden. Just a quick comment, similar to that, sort of Addington Highlands, and I can tell you with certainty that I've had personal feedback from families where the community paramedics have visited and, quote, it was life-altering in a positive way. They couldn't describe, honestly, in words, how much a difference that made to them if they were the caregiver and to the person that was, quote, receiving some help. So, great program. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Frisch. Anyone else? Yeah, I just add my appreciation for the work you're doing, Paul, and it's impressive how quickly this service has grown. I remember former Superintendent Churning mentioning community paramedicine. It was the first I'd ever heard about it, and we went ahead with the pilot, as you know, and the amount of communication, though, that you must have had to reaching out to all the various agencies and services, all your collaborators that you have now must have been a tremendous administrative undertaking. It must be satisfying to see it at the level that it currently is, and personally very satisfying for you. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Can I get a motion to receive Paul's report? Councillor Calver, Deputy Warden Townend, all in favor? That's carried, thanks. Now the vehicle purchase. Mr. Adair, it's back to you.
Circle back to the Warden, thank you. The report that you have before you is actually with respect to community paramedicine. And because of the growth that we were just talking about, we're in the position where we could use another vehicle to reach more of our population. And it came to our attention recently that we may be able to, and we have put in a request to the ministry to move our budget around and so that we can procure an SUV style vehicle for the community paramedic program. And because it is a purchase and the level of the purchase in terms of dollars, we needed to go to council to receive direction. And under the procurement bylaw for purchasing from qualified suppliers, we have used a supplier in the past, and they have provided us with a good product, and we would like to move forward with this purchase. So we seek your support on this today, and I'm pleased to have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Adair on this one? I have a question. What is this just a regular SUV, or is it a specialized type of vehicle? What is the nature of the vehicle itself?
So we would have a four-wheel drive vehicle, which helps us in the winter months. And then we do outfit it with safety cages and communications equipment and those types of things inside. So there is a retro aspect to making changes to the vehicle so that it is available to us. The secondary thing, while this is a mobile integrated health vehicle, should there be a contingency or an emergency for that, that we need to use the vehicle for, we would also have it outfitted so that we can use it in that regard as well to back up. Say another vehicle goes down and breaks or something like that, then we want to have a standardized fleet. But for the most part, this vehicle will only be used for community paramedicine, and then we would, like I said, retrofit the bones and the insides of the vehicle.
Thank you. Brandy, you had a comment?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, just pointing out for council that this is the utilization of remaining funds that have to be spent by the end of March, and if they're not, they have to go back from whence they came. So it's not impacting your budget or your levy.
Thank you. That's an important point. So any further questions for Mr. Adair? So we've got a motion to receive that, and that an additional vehicle be ordered for the community paramedicine program once confirmation from the ministry is in place that we can reallocate funds within the community paramedic budget. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Davison, Councillor Calver, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, next item 7 is the asphalt rejuvenation program, and Mr. Wager.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. There's not a lot to add to this report. Just highlight that it was only one bid, and it did come in under the budget of $300,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions should council have any.
Any questions? If not, can I get a mover to receive and to direct staff to award the contract? Councillor Fritsch, Councillor Hagedorn, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And the next one is the paving program, Mr. Wager. Perhaps not quite such good news on this one.
Yes, again, through you, Mr. Warden. It is over budget, but there's a lot of contingency in the actual contract itself. Because it is more of an overlay, we have additional granular for excavations due to soft spots or unforeseen circumstances that we encounter on site. We also have high asphalt and fuel indexing. So the last, this is now in the contracts because of the war in Ukraine. The last time this happened, the fuel prices went through the roof. This is a measure that if fuel prices go up, it allows a change in the actual items so that the contractor doesn't lose money and the county doesn't lose or overpay for anything as well. So because of that, it did inflate the price over the estimated budget. With staff and in consultation with the contractor, I'm fairly confident that we're going to come in close to the actual budget that is in or approved by council. I'll be happy to answer any questions should council have any.
Any questions for Chris? If not, we have a detailed motion here to receive, and also that we direct staff to award the contract for Part A, B, and B of the tender for hot mix paving to Green Infrastructure Partners in the amount of $8,133,687. And further, that any shortfall in the hot mix paving program that can't be addressed by savings from other projects be funded from the Roads and Bridges Reserve. And further, that the award of contract for tender number 2024-05 for the hot mix paving program to Green Infrastructure Partners Limited is subject to the approval of the Township of Loyalist for Part C, D, E, F, and Part G. Does anyone dare take on that complex motion? Councillor Hagedorn bravely puts his hand up, and Councillor Fritsch, any further comment? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And another one, I guess, in your bailiwick, Mr. Wager, is the Enbridge gas agreement. Can you explain what this is about?
Yeah, this is a typical municipal agreement from a utility company. In this case, it's Enbridge Gas. They're looking to install infrastructure within our right-of-way. We currently have an old, outdated agreement, I believe, when it was Union Gas or even the company prior to Union Gas. So this is an update. This agreement is standard across the province. There are no changes for municipalities. Staff did review it quite thoroughly. We are satisfied that it meets staff's needs. There's a detailed restoration measure in effect that if we're not happy or restoration isn't completed in a timely fashion, that we can actually hire a contractor and then bill that back to the utility company. It's not a perfect agreement in my opinion, but it is the best we're going to get, and it is above most of the agreements we do have it with the existing utility companies. And I'd be happy to answer any questions should council have any.
Any questions for Mr. Wager? So this motion is to receive the report and direct staff to enter into a franchise agreement with Enbridge and approve the form of the draft bylaw and franchise agreement attached thereto, and that council requests that the Ontario Energy Board make an order declaring and directing that the assent of the municipal electors to the following draft bylaw and franchise agreement pertaining to the corporation of the county is not necessary pursuant to the provisions of Section 9(4) of the Municipal Franchises Act. Could I get a mover and seconder for that motion? Councillor Fritsch, Councillor Davison, any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Still sticking with Mr. Wager, this is a staff report on maximum speeds on county roads.
Yes, thank you. Again, through you, Mr. Warden. Over the last couple of years, through complaints from residents, observations from the data that we collect, we have noticed that our hamlets, although not really, they don't have a speed issue or a high rate of speed, the norm of a driver is to travel 80, and then when they see the 50-kilometer ahead sign, they take their foot off the gas and kind of coast through the hamlet. And that's supported by our OPP. So we started looking at speed zones and what we should do. And again, just as we kind of notice it, the standards or the guidelines are typically a year or two behind what staff and the industry realizes. So just as we're putting our data together, the actual Transportation Association of Canada is now recommending that you go from an 80 speed kilometer zone to a maximum of a 20 kilometer reduction in speed. The old OTM or provincial standard for rural municipalities were like 80 and dropped to a 50. There's not a lot of change going to the 60 because the 50 ahead will just take that down and put like a 60 kilometer, because when you go in a 20 kilometer increment, you don't need to have the 60 ahead sign. That said, it is something that should slow drivers down a little bit more as they come into an urbanized area. And there are some, not some significant changes, but it basically just expands the majority of our hamlets with an additional reduction in speed of about 250 to 300 meters outside the existing area that's there now. I would like to point out there is one hamlet, the village of Camden East. There's a 40 kilometer per hour zone through there now. Vehicles treated as a 50 according to the TAC manual. It should be a 50, and in discussion with our TAC group and the OPP, as well as our transportation engineer, the recommendation was to revise that 40 to a 50. So that's the only one that actually has an increase. The rest of it does decrease. Now, for clarification, the Camden East boundaries will have the 60s on the outside. It's just the north-south portion of Cannon Road 4 through Camden East that will become a 50 should council approve staff's recommendation. I can go through each change if you would like, or our council could ask me questions on specific hamlets.
Yeah, I think we can entertain questions. The maps are very clear. Any questions or comments on the proposal? You might get some pushback on moving that 40 to a 50 from the public.
Yeah, it's expected. Our data shows that like it's just the same as Camden East. That is the same as Newburgh. That's a 50. It's the same as Enterprise. That's a 50. People are treating it like a 50, but yeah, we would expect to get some pushback, but we have the data to support the change.
Yeah. The one I was pleased to see was the Yarker to Colebrook change, which you've barely got time to get up to 80 before you're already in Colebrook. So dropping that to a 60 makes practical sense, really.
Yeah, when you start looking at all the data that now the regulations have changed, that we started again a couple years ago putting it together, and it just makes a lot of sense in our whole community, to be honest with you, by adding these 60s.
I agree. Can I get a mover then that we note and receive this presentation? Councillor Hagedorn, Councillor Fitch, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Wager. Next item is the Prime Agricultural Land Review. This is a request from Stone Mills Township to the county. It was done via email addressed to Clerk McKenzie. Did you want to speak to this at all, Tracy? Or Brenda? Sorry, it's Stephen.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I
Sorry,
can.
Steve.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I guess just for council's information, so Anna Gelati, our planner, she's actually having conversations right now with OMAFRA to understand exactly kind of what the steps will be to bring forward to council with regards to some options or proposals coming forward. So we expect we will do that in the April meeting. So I'll have a little bit more detailed information in front of you, and then we can make a decision going forward as well. But I guess I'd say we have a little bit of homework to do right now.
Thanks, Stephen. Just for councillors other than Councillor Davison, this was prompted by concerns by residents in our township about development on prime farmland. And you know, all our official plans talk about the primacy of agriculture and the importance, both economically and culturally, of farming. We all know that farmland is disappearing at a tremendous rate in the province, and so we thought it was time that we address that concern. So that's where this is coming from. Any questions on this one? Could I get a mover then to receive this, and I guess to direct staff to undertake a report? Is that what you're looking for, Stephen? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Deputy Warden Townend and Councillor Davison, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Living Classroom Grant. This is are you going to undertake this, Brenda, in Angela's absence?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So Angela's on a much well-deserved vacation, so I'll pinch it for her, and I just want to thank her and congratulate her because this was her idea, her work. Such a short turnaround time for a government grant program, but what wonderful work. So we will be partnering with the Limestone District School Board. The grant is for $99,997. How can you tell that the grant was maximum of $100,000? But it's great for us. So we will have the classroom on site for PSWs. They'll get real world living experience with our residents in our facility. And we are very much hoping that then it increases our ability to retain those PSWs after they're done their course, because they'll be familiar with us, they'll be like family, and they'll want to stay. So that is the goal. So I want to thank Angela, I want to thank the Limestone District School Board and the grant program, because this will be a great addition to the home. Hopefully it'll help with our PSW issue.
Thank you, Brenda. Any questions or comments on this this positive development? In that case, can I get a motion to receive? Councillor Calver and Councillor Hagedorn, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. This brings us to our advisory committee recommendations and reports. The first one is the Economic Development Coalition minutes. Did you want to say anything about what's going on there, Stephen?
No, nothing to add from my side. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Can I get a mover to receive those minutes? Councillor Fritsch, Deputy Warden Townend, all in favor? That's carried. The TAC Committee, Roads and Bridges report. Anything to highlight, Mr. Wager?
Yes, I would like to just highlight and I guess thank Matt Mulder, the CityWorks platform for the asset management software that we purchased, and then in partnership with the lower tiers are using that to collect our data, store our data, and then tie that into our finance for our capital planning. That is now completed and is now live with each municipality that is participating in that. And I would just like to thank him. It was about a 3-year process. There's different assets and different levels of service for each municipality. So it was a long process, but
Lost sound.
Through his dedication, it's a success, and I'd like to thank him. Thanks very much.
I don't even know what to do about it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to echo that. I know how much Matt has put into that. You can't imagine how much work, and I will say frustration. Wow. So I can't let it go by without thanking him too, Chris.
Any other any comments or questions on the TAC report? I wonder, Chris, at some point, do you think it would be interesting for council just to get a little elaboration on how that works? I mean, this has been a major undertaking that's largely been out of the sight of council, and how it will help all the upper and the lower tiers.
Yeah, absolutely. I can bring that back at a later council meeting. I would like to confirm with Matt and select a date that fits with him within his timeline, if that's okay with council. But yeah, we can do a demonstration and show you what we do at the county with the data and how we can actually, I'll use roads for instance, but if council wants to increase budget by 10%, how does that affect the overall assets versus if it was decreased by 10%, what does that do for the cost and the condition of the last assets over say a 5 to 10 to 20 year period? So yeah, I can definitely coordinate that with Matt. Thank you.
I think that would be really useful. Thank you. Can I get a motion to receive the TAC minutes then? Or did I already? No, I didn't. Yes, Councillor Fritsch, Councillor Calver, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Committee reports by members of council. Anyone wishing to address?
Point of order?
Yes, sorry. Missed one. The John M. Parrott Center Compliance Report. I guess, Brenda, you're going to undertake this one. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to quote Deputy Warden Townend and say if you want to throw me a softball on this. But I can be Angela for you tonight or take your question back.
Anybody? Then can I get a motion to receive that report? Councillor Davison, Councillor Calver, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now, committee reports by members of council. Anyone? I guess, Nathan, you've already given us your report for Board of Health. That's quite apparent. Nothing else then? So we'll go through the county department activity reports, starting with administration.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions council might have.
Any questions for Brenda? Then finance, Mr. Day.
Through you, Mr. Warden, the only thing I'd like to highlight is with the retirement of Cynthia Davey, that Ashley Hanscombe was a successful candidate for trial coordinator and POA coordinator, and that Sydney Wolfries was a successful candidate for the POA prosecution clerk. And I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Day. Pellis, Ms. Chenier.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I have nothing to add to the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Questions for Pellis? Nothing at this point. Community Development Services. Stephen.
Just one note that we have a second round of applications or submissions for applications for a Natural LNA Activation Fund. Those close on the end of March. So again, if there's any community groups or businesses working together that have a great idea, good projects for the next coming year, please have them submit an application. So far, we've received some really good ones, and we'll have that in front of council in April.
Any questions for Mr. Paul? Nothing. Thank you, Stephen. Emergency Services, Mr. Adair, anything you wish to highlight in your report?
Through you, Warden, the one thing I just wanted to highlight was the emergency management grant. We're a recipient of $49,000 to help replace and improve our infrastructure for emergency management in the county as number one. And so I also want to thank Robbie Burns for bringing that forward and helping to prepare for that grant. The second thing is the solar eclipse that is going to be occurring on April the 8th, and we're right in the middle of that. As council will see, the safety eyewear is in front of you, and it is an important thing that our population make sure that if you're looking at the eclipse, that you use that safe eyewear. And we have been planning for it. There's been a lot of work that's been going on in the background with the upper and the lower tiers in our neighboring communities to make sure that we are safe and can continue to operate during the eclipse. because we do expect several individuals coming in to our area, and we're hearing even numbers like 500,000 into Kingston, so that certainly can have an impact on our operations. So we're prepared, we're ready, and make sure you use your safety eyewear.
Thanks, Mr. Dare. Any questions? I heard that Niagara Falls is expecting 1 million people, and obviously they can't handle that, but they're doing what they can. So I don't know whether to hope for, for their sake, for a cloudy day or a sunny day. It's going to be an event in any case. Finally, infrastructure services, Mr. Wager. Oh, did I miss one? Boy, I'm not doing very well here. I did read all this, believe me. Trina.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I just want to add one thing to the report. So tomorrow is Thursday, March 24th, or 21st, and we, the county, along with a number of other employers in the area, will be at the Strathcona Paper Center, and it's a career fair. It's for LNA. It's really important. It's the first one I've seen of its kind. Usually we're traveling to Belleville or Kingston, so I'm really hoping that to the public that are watching, spread the word. Hope to see you there.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. McGarvey? Finally, infrastructure services, Mr. Wager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. I don't have anything to add or highlight, but I'd be happy to answer any questions should council have any.
Questions for Mr. Wager? Not seeing any. Can I get a mover to receive all those activity reports? Councillor Fritsch, Councillor Richardson, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we have a number of resolutions. Number 1, license plate fees. Anyone interested in either receiving and recommending, or can I just get a motion to receive then? Councillor Richardson, Councillor Hagedorn, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Carbon tax. Anyone want to address this one? Can I get a motion on this one from someone? Councillor Calver? Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Richardson? All in favor? That one is carried. Merging Roma and OGRA conferences. Any support for this one or simple receipt? Councillor Hagedorn?
Move to receive.
Councillor Davison, you second that? All in favor? That's carried. Funding for libraries and museums. Need to increase funding for libraries and museums. Anyone want to address this one? Councillor Davison.
Support.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Fritsch, all in favor? That's carried. Rideshare regulations, transfer of responsibility for ride-sharing services, I guess to make this a provincially regulated service. Anyone want to support this or simply receive? Councillor Fritsch.
Move to receive and support.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Calver, all in favor? Very good, thank you. That's carried. Matters for information, do we do this as a group or do, yes. Does anyone want to move the matters of information? Councillor Hagedorn, seconder. Councillor Fritsch, anything you wish to pull out of that package? There's some controversial ones in there, but in the interests of time, I will not address them. Your gratitude is evident on your faces. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Other business. Statements from members. A notice of motion. Matters of urgency. Undeclared. We have a number of bylaws. The first one is our tax ratio bylaw. And Brenda, did you tell me one of these was just first and second? No, these are first, second, and third. Yeah. Just, okay, that's right, I forgot. Okay, this will be all 3 readings then on the tax ratios. Can I get a mover? Councillor Davison, second by Councillor Hagedorn. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. And the tax rates. Councillor Fritsch, Councillor Richardson, any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Our budget's officially adopted. Prescribed maximum rates of speed. This is further to the presentation of Mr. Wager that we had earlier. Can I get a motion to implement that? Councillor Richardson, Councillor Hagedorn. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Now, this is the one for only 2 readings. This is the franchise agreement with Enbridge Gas. Can I get a mover and seconder for first and second reading of this bylaw? Councillor Davison, Councillor Richardson. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. And finally, confirmation of proceedings bylaw. Deputy Warden Townend and Councillor Calver, all in favor? And a motion to adjourn. Deputy Warden Townend and Councillor Hogg. I'm sure I saw your hand up there, Henry. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.